busting out the big question, do you use tanks in your army? Plus, we talk about how important is terrain in the game of bolt action.
Welcome to Trident Wargaming, a podcast dedicated to all aspects of tabletop wargaming. Your hosts are Bill and Andy.
Welcome back, all you bolt action fans, to episode 21 of Trident Wargaming. I'm your host, Andy, and today, again with me, I have my two good friends joining us again, Mr. Jason and Dusty. How are you guys doing?
Howdy. Doing well.
You guys are good? You guys been surviving, getting your stuff ready?
Oh, yeah. For sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's good to hear. Soon enough, we'll be able to roll some dice, I think. Yeah?
That'll be exciting, for sure. I'm a far more efficient painter when I have a deadline of a game looming.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
I used to be an avid tournament player, and that's the only way I would get my armies done.
Yeah, lately I've been just little challenges, and that's what's been doing it for me. So it's been pretty good. But for today's episode, got a couple topics to kind of go over. First, of course, we'll do kind of a hobby overview, see what we're doing and whatnot, and then we have some terrain talk. So we'll go through some stuff with terrain about the importance of it and just creation of it and whatnot, a whole bunch of stuff like that. And then one question that I actually posted on one of the Bolt Action Facebook pages is about when you're army building, is a tank or armor really necessary in an army? So that one sparked a lot of good answers, so I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say, and you know how you guys go about it as well for your armies. So yeah, first off, I guess some hobby talk. What have you guys been up to? Anything?
Well, I've been working pretty steadily on the Epic Civil War guys, and I only have like 800 to paint, so
nice.
And yeah, I think I'm gonna start on another small Canadian force with new Canadians.
You picked up the new box sets, right?
I hadn't yet. I'm going to grab the new box set and do them up just because I already have two Canadian armies, but I'll do up some units with these new guys because they look cool. There we go.
Nice. Did you do both Union and Confederates for your Civil War?
Yeah, I got the starter box with 4 brigades or 3 brigades each, and I got an extra brigade each. So I have 4 brigades each side. Plus, I did I think about 4 other brigades from some other things. So I got a lot, built, primed, and just slugging away.
Story of my life, right?
Yeah. They take a lot longer than you think. 15 mil or 13 mil. That's way fast, but it takes a lot longer than I thought. But they're going to be fun anyway.
Nice. Can't wait to see that. You'll have to send pictures and whatnot.
For sure.
And how about you, Mr. Dusty? What you got going?
Currently, I've got some Polish for Italy that I'm working on. I picked up one of the new Canadian British sets.
Nice.
And combined them with some 8th Army arms and some Marine arms to change up the weapons and and have some rolled up sleeves and things because Italy is a little bit hotter. So
Okay, yeah.
yeah, change them up a bit. And that actually is really good because the marine bits fit fairly well, but with the new sets that have come out, the 8th Army and the Canadians, and I assume the Commandos that are coming out later in September, they're all really interchangeable for pieces.
Sweet.
Yeah, they've seemed to kind of gone a little different route with their plastic kits now compared to some of the older ones, right? So they seem to have that same kind of molding for like the arms that are attached with the guns and whatnot.
Yep, and there's similar poses, but they're all the uniforms are different and
Right.
things like that, but they're very close. All the heads are different and that, but yeah, it's good to have them if you wanted to combine, especially because there's a couple different weapon options for each different type. Like 8th Army has Thompsons, and there's Sten guns and the Canadians, and you'll have some Vickers K's with the Commandos, so you'll be able to do some interesting conversions if you want. And 30 guys in a box goes a long way. I've got two 10-man units, a mortar, a Piat team, a sniper, a foo, and a commander. And yeah, like it's a good jump on an army in one box.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure it is. For sure it is. And I know some of the unboxing videos that I did there kind of show the sprue and whatnot. And I did notice on a lot of these new sets, you don't actually get like the pewter command miniatures in the new sets. They kind of made them into like support groups. But needless to say, you can still create your guys out of those plastic kits, right? So
absolutely,
yeah, it works quite well. I know I have the 8th Army as well. I should probably showcase that one at some point, but coming down the pipe for sure. So yeah, as for myself, not so much on armies, at least not for BoltAction, that is. But I have started to work on terrain because that is kind of one of our focuses for the next couple months. Usually, terrain you kind of gets a little neglected sometimes unless it's an event or something. So I did manage to put together one of my, I guess it's a cargo train car, MDF train car from Sarisa Precision, and it's to go for the Stalingrad theme that I have in my head, kind of like the railroad train sector with the warehouses and stuff. So yeah, it only took, I'm gonna say, the kit was probably anywhere from maybe 15-20 minutes to actually assemble. And I had ordered actually quite a few of them to make some decent looking terrain and like some line of sight blocking kind of stuff, and just to have that themed look, to the actual tabletop. So so that's on the go. Plus I have the we mentioned before, the tractor factory and stuff going. So that's my focus for terrain, or for hobby right now. And then looks like in the new year, a few of us are planning on going to Las Vegas again. So hopefully I'll be able to check out the BoltAction over there too. But that's another story.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty cool that you guys are still working on stuff and hype is happening. And I know in our local Facebook group, I know I dropped another painting event and extended it an extra month so guys can actually really work on stuff and whatnot. So it'd be pretty cool. I think I have Stug submitted for that, I think.
Sweet.
So it's all built. I just need to paint it. So I got to finish that German Winter Army for Stalingrad, man. That's another
Yeah,
thing.
I got my little Soviet Stalingrad army
Sweet.
painted up for one of your other painting challenges.
That's right. Nice. That was the first one we did. Yeah, I remember seeing those
Yeah.
pictures. That's cool. There's so much. There's so many miniatures and so many themes, and it's the thing I love about Bolt Action, right? There's so many possibilities and stuff that you can do.
Oh yeah.
So speaking of terrain, that will go into our kind of first subject is terrain. Everything about terrain. You know, how important is terrain in games of Bolt Action? You know,
in Bolt Action, it's super important. Like, it really makes the game. The game is designed to be like a cinematic style game. So if you're not playing with things that break line of sight, or you know, give your models the opportunity, or give yourself the opportunity to get down behind your models to get the model eye view to see if you can hit that guy or see that guy, or it really detracts from the game playing on a big open field. Probably a lot more than other games.
Yeah, I find it was a little note I wrote down was Bolt Action and terrain. Like I feel that it's actually quite different than a lot of other games. Like, and maybe you guys agree or disagree, but even the interaction with some of the terrain in your game and with your units, like buildings, for example, a lot of buildings and stuff in other games, it's just counts as terrain where you just can roll a dice and you can walk a certain distance through it, right? Whereas like Bolt Action, you are actually interacting with that terrain, and multiple units can interact with that building, as an example. So yeah, it's a bit different, and I do enjoy it. I know there's been games where we've just had slugfests because of the terrain so tightly packed. You're fighting in the middle of the streets, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and sometimes it goes against you. Sometimes you wish you were playing on an open field, but that's part of the fun too.
Oh, 100%. I know. You know what? Speaking of going against you, I do remember playing Dusty one time with his long range Desert Force there, and he caught me off guard with having his vehicles actually on the roads, and it changes your movement, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. And Dusty, you know what I'm talking about because you do it all the time, right? So
yeah. I mean,
yeah, like your opinion on that, Dusty, like it's crazy, right?
It is pretty crazy. I mean, yeah, doubling your movement on a wheeled vehicle and being able to jump a squad out and outflank is quite effective. Which it usually only works against an opponent once, and once they smarten that one up pretty quick and defend the road lines, so you can't do that. Or put a couple barriers up so it can't just zoom around the board. But even past the gameplay, I mean, it is definitely about immersing in the cinematic. I mean, it's a different that it's a historical game, and you want to see those locations, you want to see those battles, you want to reenact those great war movies that you've seen, with your models on the tabletop. So the terrain is like, I don't know, for me it's an essential part. If you don't have the terrain, it 50-50 with the armies. It's equal just on visually and enjoyment factor.
Yeah, for sure. And something you don't think about too is painted models is good, but the terrain is a lot bigger than the models. You notice that first visually, right? So if painted models are important, then having done up terrain is doubly important as far as the visual goes.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I know, like, playing across multiple gaming systems, and like when I go to an event or to a tournament, right? That's one of the big key things of telling me I'm going to come back to this event next time or I'm not. Right?
Yeah.
Is when I go there and like terrain is all done up. Like I think you guys done it like twice now, I think, with one with the spring assault, and then the other one I think was Ward's event. What was that? Onslaught?
Oh yeah.
Right? Because I remember, like, so I wasn't at that event, and I was working on stuff at home. I think it was more miniatures, but wasn't even ready for any games that I was playing. But I went to go check it out, and I seen you guys all playing. I look across the board and I was just blown away. I was like, holy smokes, look at those palm trees.
Yeah, Dustin's 8,000 palm trees.
Yeah.
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 And I've said it before too, like when you guys set up your terrain and it's all done up, even from like the teddy bear fur fields and all the trees and the buildings and the bridge and everything, Pegasus Bridge. When I'm looking down the board, even though I'm not playing, when I'm looking down the board and I can see that Sherman tank trying to creep around the corner to get that perfect shot, on that Panzer IV or something, you just look at it and you can just picture that story happening. You can picture that battle, that encounter happening, right? Troopers running across the road trying to get into cover, all that jazz. And
absolutely.
I think that's what makes BoltAction like great, is because you can capture that moment, and there's so much of it, and there's a lot of like resources that you can go for that kind of stuff. I believe it's Mel with the terrain tutor.
Yeah, for sure. He's a great resource, and he has a lot of I forget what they're called, the back to basics videos or something along that line. The basics, where he goes through, this is how you do trees. This is how you do roads. It goes through a whole bunch of the basic stuff, which is great if you're starting, especially just to get an idea. And also, a big part of making terrain is trial and error. So if you can watch the videos, and one thing I like about his videos is he also includes the errors, or we'll test out, like, I'm going to try making this 3 different ways, and I'll tell you which way works and which way doesn't. And so it's kind of nice to see that, so you don't have to make as many errors.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, great resource.
Yep, definitely.
And like some of the stuff that he's made, like I just watched his video of his Atlantic Wall D-Day landing.
That board is amazing.
And I just I want to do that. I really want to do that for the local community. Like, get that made, right? I got all the foam in the garage. I'll tell you that right now, boys. I got the foam in the garage.
Yep.
That's not a problem. That's free money sitting right there.
Yep.
Right? It's just, and I don't know about you guys, but I feel a lot of times too, terrain is kind of a passion project. Right?
Yeah, for sure. It sticks in your craw, and you get going on it.
Mm-hmm.
Stalingrad, for instance.
Yep.
What a huge undertaking. And I'm working on and the bad thing about terrain, to be honest, is that it can be overwhelming, and the projects do take a long time. So hence, I'm working on 1,000 other things, but also I also working on a Stalingrad table with Pavlov's house.
That's right. That's right.
And I think I've shared a bunch of pictures on the. I mean, it's been stalled for, 8 months or something.
Well, it takes time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
definitely takes planning too. Plan out your board. Have that. Do your research on YouTube, gather your materials, and then draw it out. What do I want? What size do I want? What am I filling it with? What are the options I'm gonna have? I find works really well before you just jump into it and then try to piece it together. I find having a plan really helps.
So that's exactly what I did. Is I didn't plan it out. The initial purchase of factories and stuff that I did, and then I got them all built up and all painted up and whatnot, and I went over to Bill's place and set them up on a table, right, like our gaming table, and I set it up. It looked really cool, but something was lacking, right? There was too much open spots. So I was like, I need a lot of scatter terrain. Like this is supposed to be a war zone. Like I almost need a textured table, to make everything fit. And then the extra scatter terrain, the craters, the debris everywhere, burnt out shells and hulls of vehicles and stuff like that, right? So exactly what, like Dusty said, plan it out. Yeah.
Well, and even like going on, like planning your armies, it's the same with terrain. You consider the thematic or the cinematic story. Mm-hmm. What is your board? What's the story of your board? I think when you you envelop yourself in that story, you can create such a better board than just throwing a bunch of things on. Like you really what is this, what part of history does this taking place? Like you can really get yourself ingrained in it.
Oh, for sure. I know. I don't know how many overview pictures of Stalingrad I've been looking at just to kind of get an idea of what's what. But it's all there. It's all in our history. It's all on the internet. So have at her. And gathering materials and whatnot. Like I know I looked at making some kind of jungle Pacific kind of boards at one point, and I literally have a tote full of artificial plants that I would actually use to make palm trees from. The first was probably the first video I seen from Mel, and it was literally making palm trees. So, so they're sitting there ready to be used and whatnot and stuff like that. But you can find so much of it, and here we have a couple of shops that are pretty cheap that you just can find random stuff that you're like, oh, I can use that. That will work. That's usable, And then you have your hobby shops that will have some more of the specific things, like molds and whatnot if you need to. So,
and dollar stores are great.
Yeah, and that's exactly the place to be, right? So
just walk up and down the aisles, and you'll see random.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they're used for. Why people need giant bags of popsicle sticks, or weird fake plants kind of on a tree, like an armature to hold them all. I don't know why people need that for other stuff, but I know what for.
No, definitely there's that, and then there's if you want to put money into it, you obviously there's MDF and plastic kits that you can get, and as Jason knows, and I've just kind of delved into printing as well, but 3D printing, which definitely takes a lot of time, but when you figure it out, you can make some good solid stuff. Like I know I've printed out a few like stone walls. Very simple print, but you can pump out a whole bunch of them during the week, and next thing you know it, you got all this scattered terrain that you can use for your boards, right?
Yeah, they're amazing for scatter terrain because the scatter terrain type things don't take very long, like comparatively.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, and so they're not very expensive. They don't take up very much material, so they're super cheap. Things like, walls or, uh, you know, little vehicles or graders or
Depends what you need. Yeah, like crates and whatnot. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
Yep. Tree stumps. I mean, the list is endless.
Definitely. And I mean, if you're new to 3D printing, scatter terrain's a good thing to start with, because even if you mess up a few prints, they're really easy to still make work for scatter terrain.
Especially for terrain. If something doesn't print right, a lot of times I've printed apartment for Berlin, World War II 28 mil scale, and it messed up halfway through. So I just jaggeded up the edges and put some rubble on the inside, and it's just a blown out apartment instead.
Yeah, exactly.
It works perfect for that.
That's like the big building I'm building right now. I don't know what it is, but I have had to cut it into different pieces to fit my printing time for myself, right? But I can see that there's some gaps, and it's just like, okay, well, I got some plastic card. I'll kind of fix that up with, and then just rough it up, and there you go. You got some terrain, some ruined terrain or whatever for a city. So
100.
But yeah, no, it's pretty good. Lots of stuff out there. You guys just take a look. There's a lot of resources on the internet. A lot of the communities are very helpful with that too. I know Geek Gaming Scenics Luke, he does a lot of homemade kind of terrain, realistic looking stuff, from static grass to these sea foam tree branches, which I always laugh at. I actually ordered like 2 boxes from the UK, and they look like realistic trees, but they have so much. He has a shop too. You can grab a lot of stuff from them, but there's so much out there. It's ridiculous. And then on top of that too is battle mats. Battle mats are good if you want to make that, quick base for what you're going to play with. And it's very smooth, very good surface. Textured tabletops are a little bit more work and can be a little heavier, but they do look really good.
They can look cool. They're hard. The biggest drawback for those, I find, is really storage, right? You build a really cool textured board or whatever, and then you got to put it somewhere when you're not playing with it. But they do look great. The best thing about the mats is that, I mean, you can have 20 of them in the place of, one board.
Yeah.
Yep. And obviously transportability. Like
transporting.
If you are, going to your local gaming group or something, and maybe they have terrain, maybe they don't, or you're going to a buddy's place and he doesn't have anything, you can roll up your mat, fill your bin with your terrain, and pack it in the car, and it's super fast.
Yeah.
You still need a surface to put it on, but it can always be all sorts of things, not just a flat sheet.
Yeah, and I will say I've really become attached to the oversized mats as opposed to the exact 6x4 dimensions, the ones that are in the fleece or the teddy bear fur ones, because I can put uh, hills, or you could even put books under or whatever to get the undulation of the terrain. You can make hills underneath the mats, you know, super easy. And if you're doing something specific, you can make it, you know, with, a VHS and a couple of books underneath there.
VHS,
You
wow,
know.
throwback
Yeah,
there,
I don't know
Jason.
who has a VHS hanging around, but
I know I still have one somewhere, but that's awesome.
but yeah, those oversized mats are absolutely where it's at for me right now. I love being
Nice.
able to plop stuff under it and make the shapes that I want out of the terrain.
Nice.
And there's so many more companies nowadays that are doing all kinds of mats. You know, whether they be fabric or neoprene or teddy bear fur. Like, so many now. They're so accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. So yeah, that's kind of our take on terrain for this session. A lot of good info there, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. And I'm sure you'll see pictures and whatnot of stuff that we work on and whatnot. I know local community-wise, they've been posting a couple of pictures of terrain. Might snag some of that to show you guys out there as well. But our next topic, and this one I asked in one of the Facebook BoltAction communities, was: is it really necessary when building an army to take tank/armor in your army? And with the answers I got back and whatnot, it's kind of a 50-50 split. So it's pretty good. But
I think the rule of cool applies as the number one theory for building an army. If you like tanks, bring a tank. Yeah. And if you're not a huge fan, or if that's not what you're going for, then don't bring it. But the game is set up in such a way that you can combat a tank without having one. There's anti-tank guns. There's artillery or mortars that you can use to pin out tanks. There's flamethrowers. There's infantry with anti-tank weapons like Panzerfaust or
bazookas,
or
Piats.
There's even anti-tank grenades, and you can assault the tank, which is one of my preferred methods with my paratroopers.
Yeah, don't do the same thing I did against Tony's Sherman. I ended up trying to assault him before he activated, and I was in his front arc. Wow, that unit got roasted.
Yeah,
so
he was able to fire at you.
Yeah, he was.
Oh no!
Mistake number one. Learned a lesson that turn, but yeah, like some of the stuff you said there, that's some of it is what some of these guys have said, right? And kind of went through and made a list of just kind of, you have one, or no, you don't have one, right? But yeah, rule of cool, like you said, is there. There's a lot more no, you don't really need one. Like, the answer is about 50-50, but there's a little bit more on the, no, you don't, right? Which, I get it, Dusty, have you used any tanks? I don't.
I have used the occasional tank. Nothing super super big. Usually, it's a lighter vehicle.
Right.
But Yeah, when it comes to tanks, I mean, for the most part, you don't. When you're playing the game, you don't need them. I mean, there are, again, yeah, like artillery pieces and things that are far more useful. And one thing Jason didn't mention was just even of just avoiding vehicles like the tanks.
Yeah.
Using your terrain to your advantage. Sometimes it works out that that tank maybe gets 2 shots off. Of course, it's only got one main gun, perhaps, and it's only hitting once. And it's I find they're a lot more of a fear tactic than necessarily, in my experience, that they're effective. I found what was I going to say there? I found I honestly like playing opponents that do have tanks in their army because I know that they've sunk a considerable amount of points in that vehicle, and it can be really easy to either not even to knock it out, but to avoid it, and that vehicle won't pay for its points, and that means I probably have an extra infantry squad or two that he doesn't have on his side. So.
And not to mention that they generally can't capture objectives.
Yep.
So in some scenarios, sinking that many points into a tank, might be the reason you lost. If you don't have enough infantry to be able to withstand some casualties and be able to capture the objective, whatever scenario you might be playing, at the end of the day, maybe that tank was a detriment. But they are also super fun. I don't want to be on the tank hating.
No, yeah.
No,
they're super fun.
So a lot of the things you guys have pointed out just now is exactly what these guys have been saying. So, there's one, and I see this all the time, is they're kind of a one-hit wonder kind of thing where one lucky hit on them and that's it. They're like a glass cannon, right?
Yeah.
If you don't take one, your opponent's anti-tank weapons that they've spent points on are kind of useless, right?
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah.
So there's that. Some people say that the points are wasted on them because they don't make their points back, which is kind of true. If you go big, 666 points for a tank is a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah,
that's a lot.
Especially depending on the size of the game, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But also, the argument against not making your points back can sometimes be a little bit silly because they also absorb a lot of hits.
True.
Mm-hmm.
They are magnets for firepower, which even if your tank didn't necessarily kill, I'm playing devil's advocate a bit here, but even if your tank didn't necessarily kill that many points, it maybe saved that many points from the rest of your team getting destroyed also.
Yeah, and that's... Go ahead, Dusty.
Go ahead. It may even save an entire flank, right?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Just having it there.
And and that's, again, there's a couple of those points here, like, no, you don't need to take one, but if you do, they can be a distraction force, right?
Yeah.
Like you just like you said, soaking up hits. They can be a sponge sometimes, right? Sometimes you like my French don't really have strong enough weapons to take them out, right? Especially heavier tanks if I'm going against them, if it's just kind of a pickup game and you're just playing. But there's things too, historical accuracy, depending on what time period you're playing. Guys might want to take it because it fits their army. There's some words here about like tournaments. A lot of the guys are saying leave them at home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting portion on the no, you don't really need it. But as for the portion of like guys are saying, oh no, you got to take one, right? You must have them. They, if they're used well, if they're positioned well, they can control the battlefield, right?
Yep.
Multiple guns, you can fire guns at different targets, that kind of thing. Getting pummeled by 3 medium machine guns, your squad is pretty much hitting the deck. Like, they're going to be pinned there for a long time, right? So the mobile machine gun platform, pretty much. Of course, an advantage of firepower and protection. So if you don't really have anything in your army to knock out a tank, there's a good chance it's going to be on there for a while, and it's going to do some work.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one of the guys was saying it's they're pretty good for late activation. So waiting the rounds out, hopefully you don't get blasted and shot, but being a later activation and seeing everybody where they're at, if you got a unit that hasn't gone down and already used its order, and you're able to fire at it with a decent hitting number, you're gonna do some work. Caught out in the open. And my favorite is, a lot of times if I am gonna take a tank, it's not gonna be so much with a anti-tank cannon. I'm looking at howitzers, because as we know, as you guys know, I love my howitzers.
Yep.
But the game is basically, it's meant for infantry, right? And when those bigger howitzers hit, they do massive work, even against veterans.
Oh yeah, there's no,
and of course I'm looking at it at a point of view too of, like, if I was going to a tourney, I would probably take a howitzer of some sorts. But even just pickup games, if I want to throw it into one of my armies, am I going to go and take the biggest tank there is? Probably not, because it's just so many points. I'll save that for tank war,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, howitzers, yeah, I'll put a check mark on that in my books.
But here's the other thing: tanks just look cool on a tabletop. So regardless of everything else, and this is also from a guy that plays an exclusively infantry-based army as my main army, they just look pretty darn cool on a tabletop.
They do.
Yep.
Probably why I have like 30 or 40 tanks.
We are going to have to start something up with tank war, though.
We should. I have 14 Shermans.
There you go. But like, I do know a lot of the guys. I know they mentioned it before that they would love to do some kind of little campaign or something, and tank war would be pretty simple to do. So, and if nobody, maybe that's a topic we can talk about and whatnot as well, as tank war. But as for one more thing on do you need to take a tank in your army? So for me, the one, not pet peeve, but kind of concern sometimes, is when you're playing, your 1,200 points, whatever it is, the highest points. Was it 1,200, 1,250? I can't remember. It's been so long.
1250.
1250?
1250.
Yeah, that's right. Is when you start taking 2 platoons and you start taking 2 tanks in your army. Now you got 2 of them to face. You know what I mean? Like, myself, I don't think I would do that unless it was like a specific actual tank platoon or something, right? Just to show that they had those multiple artillery pieces kind of thing in their army, But I don't know. It's a tough one because everybody plays differently. You know.
One of the great things about BoltAction, though, is that so far in all the games that I've played, I've never played a game, and I lose a lot, at least 50-50. But I've never played a game where I felt like I couldn't have won.
Yeah.
Because of the forces. Right?
Right.
The armies are balanced enough. Some have weaknesses and strengths, but there's so many options that you can beat anything. You know, so even that 2-tank list, he has 2 platoons. He does have to pay for that second officer and those 2 other troops. So in order to do that, he probably paid for crappy officers. So he has low leadership and probably has really small squad sizes of pretty mediocre troops. So it totally will even out. But intimidating to face 2 tanks. I'm with you there.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, I have faced them a fair bit, but yeah, you definitely got to play the mission, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you have those 2 tanks, and most of the scenarios have some kind of objective that you have to capture.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, that is what it is. And you can't capture it with a tank. At best, you can deny it to the enemy to go for a draw. But if I can take out all of your infantry squads and make it so you can't win, and best you can do is fight for a draw, you know?
Right.
It's really pretty easy to do against those armies where they have all their points in that one direction.
No, that's true. That's very true. It's good.
And let's not forget, you are playing a game and you're playing in the odds. So those tanks still have to roll dice, and I don't know about you, but my dice roll up low all the time.
Have you seen my French dice?
Yeah. My snipers are the worst hitting unit in my game. In any game I've ever played.
Especially those one-shot weapons, like
yeah. No,
large guns, flamethrowers, all the things that always matter, and you're rolling under average.
Yeah, and like you said, if you're playing 6 turns in a game, maybe 7, maybe 8, if you're rolling for the extra turns, that's 6 shots, 6 chances to hit. Right, on a D6, needing probably a 4 or more, at least a 4 or more to hit, most commonly, right?
Yeah.
And if the guy is smart, he's going to try to make the number you need go up where he can. So, needing a 5 or a 6 to hit, you're only getting 6 tries at best. Yeah, that's
yeah, and that's not even including like this whole turn my force can be hiding around buildings in this, African desert town of what sorts, and you can't see me at all. So now you have to maneuver out of your position or, go into ambush to try to see if I'm going to move so that you're going to be able to fire. But
exactly,
if you're just sitting back there in that zone while you're that whole turn, you could be wasted. So you're not doing anything.
Quite often the first turn isn't there's very little or no shooting, or you're taking a pot shot with very little chance of actually hitting. Yeah. Because that's the only option available, right? Usually you're moving on the table, or your guys are already hidden or behind some terrain.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not even getting those full 6 turns, to shoot,
and
certainly not shooting optimally.
And one of the worst things that can happen to you with having a tank, and I've had this happen, is the prep bombardment. sometimes your tank gets that unlucky hit with that prep bombardment, and it's you don't even get to use it in the game. It just happens, right? Not very often.
No.
But for me, it always seems to be it's either my transport, my tank, or my officer.
My officer every time.
Right?
Hit by prep bombardments. Every time my guys are going in without a guy leading them.
It's Murphy's Law. That's the way it happens, you know?
Yeah.
So every once in a while it's a medic, but you know, it happens. So, but yeah, it's interesting. It's like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I would take 2 tanks.
No, unless I'm doing it for fun, or if we're trying to do some kind of specific scenario.
Right.
I think in general, certainly on a pickup game or a rando, playing against a random dude, I maybe a tank. Probably I'm playing my paratrooper, so I'm not bringing a tank anyway. But if I'm playing, my Canadians or any other forces, I'm probably 1 tank max.
Nice. Yeah. And
yeah, if I'm ever taking 2 tanks though as well, like I don't think they'd be any higher than 7+ armor if I'm taking 2 tanks.
Yeah, I was just gonna actually ask you guys too, like, when it comes to taking armor, your point kind of limit of where you're sitting at. Are you going to go with a lighter tank, or are you going to go with a heavier tank? Depending on what army you're playing or building. Like I know my French, a lot of times when I'm playing that high points, sometimes I'm sick of looking at all the infantry I have on the board and I need a big char on my side.
Yeah.
Slow as hell, but when I tell the opponent I'm firing a howitzer from the hull and they just look at me.
What?
You can take my light cannon, but you're taking the howitzer too.
A lot of times people overlook the French army armor in bolt action because they don't often get the game that they deserve. Often they're playing against mid to late war Germans.
Yeah.
Instead of early war. And early war German tanks versus the early war French tanks, it's very much more even.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think we've had some of those battles where it's really fun playing with those early war light tanks.
Yeah, they're just underrepresented, especially in tabletop games. Everybody wants to go for the big Panzers,
yeah,
or Panthers or Tigers.
Yeah.
But I love the look of those little, Panzer IIs.
Mm-hmm. That was the first one I used, actually.
Nice.
Don't discount early war Stuart with 3 MMGs on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, the Stuart, they basically kept till the late war. They obviously they changed it to the M5, but still relatively the same design.
It's funny you mentioned the M3 because I think that was one of my last purchases. Yeah, it's a M3 and a Puma that I bought.
Nice.
So that's good stuff.
I would rather face a Tiger than a guy with 2 Pumas. To be honest.
Recce vehicles they're crazy good.
And I think I'm not sure. I think the Italian forces have like a 2-for-1 choice of a small tank as well, and it's like multiple machine guns. Which one of the guys used that on us at one time. But yeah, like super cheap, lots of machine guns, and you got 2 of them, and it was like, oh boy, this thing's gonna just shred infantry, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but-
and I mean, early war, like a 50 caliber was an anti-tank gun.
yeah, that's true.
That's what it was. It just adopted different purposes moving forward. As armor got thicker, but yeah, it's just, I love seeing those early war tanks.
The little tankettes. Yeah.
I think my favorite tank is that oh geez, the Polish is it the T3? What am I thinking of? I can't remember what it's called. The little, I have three of
Is
them.
it like a little 2-man?
Yeah,
Like super small, right? I can't remember. Yeah.
super tiny tankettes. They're smaller than a universal carrier. You can hide them behind a picket fence, and the guy can't see you.
Yeah, I think it's T3, TK3,
T3, yeah,
TK3.
TK3, yeah. It's as tall as the waist, up to the waist of a man standing.
Yep. I mean, it looks like you've built a tank for your 5-year-old.
Yeah, it's a golf cart chassis.
Yeah, it's a golf cart tank for sure.
That's funny. That's pretty funny. But yeah, when it comes to tanks and army building, lots of options. As you can see, pros and cons, and what people have kind of said, and what Dusty and Jason have said here too. So, but ultimately, historical game, like Jason said, rule of cool, and just play with what you want, really. So,
Your army, play with what you want.
Exactly.
Don't give in to peer pressure. Do what you wanted, man.
So and with that, that's about all the time we have for this episode. So if you guys do like what you heard and have any comments or ideas about topics that we've talked about, please write us on comments, or you can email us. Also check out our Facebook page and jump in there, and check out our Instagram as well. So we'll have a lot more kind of discussions like this down the road, and I think I'm going to maybe start up a little series of just kind of army overviews like we were doing before, but kind of make them separate episodes, because a lot of times there is a fair bit of stuff to go through in an army. Give it a little bit more of a deep dive episode that I could go into and whatnot. But again, thanks for joining. Thank you guys for joining me here today as well. It's always a pleasure. And,
yeah, no worries. Thanks.
You guys are always welcome. So I'm sure that we will be playing here in the near future.
Hopefully.
So, and again, for anybody listening and checking us out, thanks for jumping in and listening. And hopefully we'll see you guys again, and we'll catch you next time. Trident Wargaming. Build it, paint it, play it.